Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is Mr. Rowe. We're looking in Geometry Part B. This is Lesson 10, and we're going to look at the surface area of prisms. So let's recall what a prism is. This is discussed in the lesson content. A prism is a polyhedron with two congruent parallel faces called bases. The other faces of the prism are called the lateral faces. When naming a prism, you name it by the base. For example, if the base are triangles, you'll call it a triangular prism. And then prisms can be right or oblique. So let's take a look at what that means. So here's a right prism. Here's an oblique prism. You notice the difference in the two. A right prism, all the sides are right angles to each other. Over here, you see we have, basically, this is a parallelogram, basically, so it's slanted to the side. The height is outside the prism here. It's the altitude of the prism, or of the right. It's the altitude of the side. So it's the altitude outside. So we talked about this when we talked about parallelograms. So that's the difference in the two. Now let's talk about the bases. So these are the bases of the prism. It's basically the sides that are parallel to each other. Now in a rectangular prism, you could let any pair of sides be the bases, but typically it's the two sides that are parallel to each other. And we'll look at that more when we talk about surface area when we do some problems here in just a minute. And then the lateral faces would be the rest of the sides. So like this back side, this front right here, this front right here, and this side in the back. Those are the lateral faces. So understand what we mean when we talk about the lateral faces and the bases. You'll need to know that when we talk about lateral area versus surface area. So let's take a look at an example of let's talk about what surface area is. So the surface area of a prism is the sum of the lateral area. So that's adding up all those lateral faces and then adding up the area of the two bases. So that's the surface area. The lateral area is the sum of the areas of all the lateral faces. We just said that. So lateral area could be defined as this formula, perimeter of the base. I should say that, perimeter of the base. See, where P is the perimeter of the base. And capital H, now use a capital here just so you don't get it confused with the height of the base itself, is the height of the prism. So now what's the height of the prism? The height of the prism is the number that attaches, or the altitude that attaches the two bases together. And then surface area is this formula, 2 times the area of the base plus the lateral area. So capital B is the area of the base. Please understand that capital B is the area of the base. It's not a single number. You have to do a calculation to get capital B. That's why I capitalize it. And then we can simplify this formula to surface area equals 2 times the base plus the perimeter times the height. And that's the formula that we're going to use in all of our examples here. So let's take a look at our first example. So this is a rectangular prism. So a rectangular prism will be our easiest example that we're going to look at. And again, we're going to find the lateral area. We're going to find the surface area. So we're going to find both of these parts. So we need to set one of these sides to be our lateral area, or our base, I mean. Now remember, we could make any of these sides be our base. Since this is a rectangular prism, that means pretty much all the sides are rectangles. So we've got a rectangle on the bottom. It has a parallel rectangle on the top. Same thing on the sides. We've got a parallel rectangle here with this rectangle over on this side, and then the front and the back are also congruent parallel rectangles. So if we want to find the lateral area and the surface area, I'm just going to pick the bottom to be my base, that 10 by 8 rectangle. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull that base out and do my scratch work right here on the side. And then I'm going to use that scratch work in the formulas. So remember, we have to find lateral area, which is P times H. Remember, P is the perimeter of the base times the height of the base. Well, these are going to be the numbers that we're going to use for the perimeter, which means that one of these two numbers can't be the capital H or the height. So that makes the 15 the height. So just remember that's how you find the height. And then we're also going to find the surface area, which is 2 times B. Remember, capital B is the area of the base. And we're going to multiply times, or we're going to add to that P plus H, which is perimeter times the height. So let's find the perimeter first. So here's our perimeter. We're just going to add up all 4 sides. Remember, this side and this side are congruent. So are these 2 sides here. So we've got 2 8s and 2 10s. So to find the perimeter, 2 times 8 is 16, plus 2 times 10, which is 20. 16 plus 20 is 36. And then the area of the base, the capital B, is length times width. In this case, 10 times 8 is 80. So we're going to use 36 and 80 in these formulas over here. So now the lateral area, perimeter, which is 36, times the height, which is 15. 36 times 15 is 540. And then we've got our surface area, which is 2 times the area of the base, which we got right there, 80. 2 times 80, plus the lateral area, which is right here, 540. 2 times 80 is 160. 160 plus 540 is 700. So 700 feet squared would be the surface area of this rectangular prism. So here is another object. So we're going to find the lateral area, which is perimeter of the base times the height. We're going to find the surface area, which is 2 times the area of the base plus the perimeter of the base times the height. Now, what is this object? This is a triangular prism. Well, how do I know it's a triangular prism? Because these 2 bases right here are parallel to each other. So that's why this is a triangular prism. So the base of this object is this triangle with a side of 5, or a height of 5, and a base of 12. Well, our first thing that we need to find is the perimeter. Well, we need to know this side in order to find the perimeter. So don't think that you're going to be given all your information on every single problem. Sometimes you're going to have to calculate something. So in this case, we're going to have to apply the Pythagorean theorem to figure out this hypotenuse right here. Sometimes you might have to use special right triangles. But whatever you do, expect that at least one situation where you're going to have to do a calculation before you can find the lateral area and the surface area. So we're going to apply the Pythagorean theorem here. A squared plus b squared equals c squared. We know the a and b are 5 and 12 because they form the right angle. So 5 squared plus 12 squared. It gives us 25 plus 144, which is the square root of 169. So that means that that hypotenuse is 13. So now we have all the information we need in order to find both the perimeter of this base and the area of that base. So let's start off with the perimeter. Remember, the perimeter of any object, you add up all the sides. So we're going to add 5 plus 12 plus 13. 5 plus 12 is 17. 17 plus 13 is 30. So we've got 30 for our perimeter, or the P that we're going to use in both of our formulas. So capital B. Now remember, the area of a triangle is half the base times the height. So we have half times the base times the height, so 5 times 12, which is 60, and half of 60 is 30. So we've got our capital B, we've got our perimeter. So now we can find our lateral area. Well, lateral area is perimeter of the base, which we calculated right here is 30. So 30 times 20, well, where did 20 come from? Well, 20 attaches the 2 bases together. It's the altitude that attaches the bases together. So that's 20. And remember, the height, the capital height, can't be any of the numbers that's part of the base. So it will not be these numbers right here. So the only number left is 20. So 30 times 20 is 600. Now we're going to find the surface area. Well, the surface area, 2 times the area of the base, so the area base is 30. So 2 times 30, plus the lateral area, which we calculated right there, 600. 2 times 30 is 60, plus 600 is 660 inches squared. So that's a triangular prism. Now, again, my suggestion really makes this a lot easier if you do what I'm doing here, which is to draw the base down to the side. Go ahead and find the perimeter of that base, and go ahead and find the area of that base then come up here and do your calculations. Makes it a lot easier so you don't mess up finding surface area. Let's take a look at our next one. Now, what in the world is that thing? Well, this is a trapezoidal prism. Now, why is it trapezoidal? Because this base right here is a trapezoid. And there's a trapezoid that's parallel to it right there. So this is a trapezoidal prism. So again, we're going to find the lateral area, which is perimeter of the base times the height. We're going to find the surface area, which is 2 times the base plus the perimeter of the base times the height. So now, again, sketch your base. This makes life a lot easier. Now we need to kind of figure out what numbers go where here. So let's start off by looking at this base right here of the trapezoid. Well, that is that number right there, 8 kilometers. So we're going to sketch that in right there. But what's the other base? The base is right there, it's 5. So we're going to add that into our picture. Well, what's the height of the trapezoid? That red dashed line right there. Well, that's 4.8. So throw that in there. And you notice that this is also an isosceles trapezoid, which makes life a lot easier. We know that because of these markings right here. So that means that the sides of the trapezoid are 5. So now we have all the information we need in order to find the perimeter of the base and the area of the base. So now if you recall, perimeter, you just add up all the sides. So we're going to add 5 plus 5 plus 5 plus 8. And that gives us 23. Now the area of a trapezoid is half the height times the sum of the bases. So half the height is 4.8 right here, times the sum of the bases. The bases are 8 and 5. So 8 plus 5 is 13, times 4.8 times a half. Get your calculator out, multiply all that out, and you'll get 31.2. So we've got P, we've got capital B. Now we can find the lateral area and the surface area. So let's look at the lateral area. Lateral area is the perimeter, which is 23, times the height. Now again, remember the height, it's not going to be one of these highlighted numbers because it's the number that attaches one base to the other base. So in this case, 10 is our height. So we're going to multiply by 10. That gives us 230 kilometers squared for the lateral area. Surface area, 2 times the area of the base. The area of the base is 31.2 plus the lateral area, which we just found out right there, 230. So 2 times 31.2, which is 62.4, plus 230. That gives us 292.4 kilometers squared. So again, I can't emphasize how easy doing this right here makes these problems, because once you find the perimeter and once you find the area of the base, just come up here and fill into these 2 little formulas and you've got your lateral area and your surface area. Let's take a look at our last example here. So what in the world is that? Well, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sides. So this is a hexagonal prism, hexagonal based prism. So what in the world are we going to do here? We're going to find the lateral area. We're going to find the surface area. So the base is this hexagon. So you notice that the only piece of information we're given right here is this distance from the center of the hexagon to the side of the hexagon. That's called the apothem, if you recall. So that's what we need in order to find the area. And we're also given that one side of the hexagon is 7. So here is the information that we need to find the perimeter and to find the area. So how do we find the perimeter of this hexagon? Well, we've got 6 sides. Each side is 7. And you notice that they're all the same. It says so right here. That means this is a regular hexagon. So 7 times 6 is 42. Now, how do we find the area of a regular hexagon? We had this formula in a previous lesson. Half the apothem times the perimeter. Well, look at there. We've already found our perimeter because we need it for this. So we've already got that found. So we're just going to substitute 1/2 times the apothem, which is 6.1, times the perimeter, which we just found is 42. 1/2 of 6.1 times 42 is 128.1. And now we're just going to find our lateral area. Substitute that in. Perimeter of the base, which is 42, times the height. Now remember, these two numbers can't be the height. Only the number that attaches the two bases together can be the height. So that's 11. We got 42 times 11, which gives us 462 feet squared. And to find the surface area, it's 2 times the area of the base, which we just calculated right here, 128.1, plus 46 or 462, which is our lateral area that we found right there. Plot that calculator again. 2 times 128.1 plus 462 gives us 718.2 feet squared. So this is how you find the surface area of a prism. It doesn't matter what the base is, just draw that base out to the side, put your numbers on there, find the perimeter and the area, and then go use those two formulas, 2 times h for lateral area, 2b plus ph for the surface area. Hope this helps you find the area of or the surface area and the lateral area of a prism. If you still struggle with this content as you're working on your lesson, please let me know in a teacher message or make an appointment for a help session.